Our panelists, on behalf of Kenneth Branagh's focus film Belfast, in which she plays the matriarch of a family caught up in the troubles of Northern Ireland, please welcome Caitriona Balfe. Caitriona.
I think the budget was around 7 million, and we shot for 7 weeks. So somebody else do the math on that.
Caitriona, you're coming to this role in Belfast, having been now, how many seasons are we into with Outlander, which is fantastic. I want to just note, but I mean, is it something where, were you looking for something specific in your off season? I'm looking for, you had something in mind, or was this just a matter of, it seems like almost a part who else would make sense, of course, where Kenneth Branagh, it's his story. You have your own sort of similar, it sounds like, past with it sounds like your mother had some of the same experiences that your character's playing. I guess, just how did it come about, and what for you was the appeal?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had been looking for something to do in Ireland for a very long time. And technically I still haven't worked in Ireland because we shot this in England, which is strange that I haven't done anything there yet. But, I think anything that would have showed up in my inbox that had Kenneth Branagh on it, I probably would have said yes anyway. But it was just such a special project. And it was funny because it happened right after we'd just been in lockdown for 4 months. And I was up in Glasgow. And so it was really strict there. And so we kind of hadn't even, really left our apartments much or left your neighborhood much. And I got a call to say that Ken had written this script about Belfast and was sort of based on his childhood. And if I wanted to read it, which was a stupid question because I was like, yes. And when I read it, it was such a beautiful script, but it was also, even though our stories are very, very different, and this is very personal to Ken, I left Ireland when I was 18, and having been in lockdown, I think it made everybody very introspective, and you kind of examine your life in a certain way. And I think, I might have been going through slight existential crises about what I was doing with my life and all of those things. But this script, it just touched me in such a place. And I don't know if that's because it was such an Irish story and I recognize the characters in it. And, even though my mother the story with Ma is very different, but there was something of my mother that I really felt in her and I could connect to in her. And, it just, there was just so much about the project that was so great on the page. And then, you find out that Judi Dench is in it, and Ciarán Hinds, who's the most incredible actor, and Jamie Dornan. And it was just all around, it was just like such a beautiful, it was like a gift from, the post-lockdown gods just to let me go and do something. And we shot it in Surrey, but, because of our budget and because of the COVID restrictions and everything, we really had 2 locations. And the thing that became so apparent about working in this time and working in this budget is just the creativity that you have to find to make things work. And I mean, how they made the sets and how they repurposed everything. And, we spent, I think, 4 or 5 of the 7 weeks in this one old boarding school that they just kept finding different ways of using it and, making it work for this location, that location. And, we were such a skeleton crew, and we were such a skeleton cast that, speaking to sort of what Anne was talking about, it just felt like a company, and it felt like a family instantly. And I think that really just spoke to how everyone approached their role. We just connected from day one, and there was a real feeling of all hands in. And I don't know, it was a really special time.
Well, and it is interesting how sometimes the limitations that are imposed on you actually force greater creativity on all the parts of all the people.
I think that's one of the great things about indie film. It's like I've also been wanting to do more indie stuff. You know, being on a TV show is amazing and it's been so great to me, but you know, I've been looking to try and find something else to do. And my heart has always been in, you know, I love to watch indie film far more than I would ever, you know, some studio film's great too, but the stories that people get to tell in indie film usually are just so much more special. And it feels like this was, you know, this was just one of those moments where everything conspires to make somebody really dig deep into their creativity and come up with something really special.
Caitriona, I think they also are at a time when the studio movies are, as we've all, you know, it's come up a number of times, it's basically overwhelmingly remake, sequels, adaptations of existing material that's supposed to appeal to everybody. I mean, your movie is one of an example of a number of them here that treats people like adults, assumes that you know, your audience is smart and can keep up with you, even if it's through the eyes of a 9-year-old. There's a lot of subtext going on throughout your movie, and just all kinds of layers to it that I think it's kind of nice to not be condescended to when you go to a movie.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny because the Troubles, you know, what happened in Northern Ireland is such a backdrop to what happened in our film. And I think if this was made anywhere else at a big studio, they would be like, no, you have to explain. And you would spend half of the movie giving sort of the background on who each side are, why they think what they think. But Ken, you know, this is kind of his experience, but he just was like, no, I'm telling this story as the child that I was, and you get these glimpses of what's going on, but it's not really important if you understand every nuance of what was going on in Northern Ireland at that time. It's about how this child was feeling at that moment and how it affected his life. And, you know, I think he just had such freedom because of, you know, I think he made it the way he wanted and was able to film in such a great way that, you know, even all the shots and everything they're through the eyes of a child. So there's so many of the scenes where, you know, Jamie and I, usually if this was in a studio movie, there would have been like the big close-up, we're having a huge argument that's, you know, really important in the film, but actually we're deep background because it's all through the eyes of the child. And it was such an interesting way to film, and it was very exciting for me to be able to be part of something that wasn't the rote kind of, right, we're going to do the wide shot and we're going to move in for the mid and then the close-up, which is, you know, especially coming from my background, I'm so used to things being in such a sort of a filmed in just the very normal way. So it was great. I mean, I just love that he had that freedom to sort of tell the story the way he wanted without having to, you know, put in oodles of exposition just to explain it to everybody.
And to do it visually the way you wanted. I mean, it seems for whatever reason, it's such a fight to like these days, if you want to have a black and white movie or a different aspect ratio or whatever, like they tend to, I don't know, there've been a lot when they've done it in the last few years, they've turned out in many cases quite nicely, but it sounds like every single time it's a war to get somebody to let you realize your vision like that. But yeah, please.
No, I was just like, Harris was on Blackus, our DP. I mean, he just shot it so beautifully, and the fact that they bled pieces of color in at times as well. Like I can imagine if you brought that to, you know, a studio or something, they'd be like, you know what, it's the color and then it goes to black and white and then you still have these moments, like, you know. So it was just, and the way that he was able to weave the music through it as well. You know, I don't think anyone would have allowed for these beautiful moments of, you know, you have a funeral and then you have this great musical number where everybody is just so joyous. You know, I don't think he would have had the freedom to be able to do things like that.
And Caitriona, man, you guys you came to Telluride and blew people away there. You go right on to the next stop in Toronto, which is, again, couldn't be more different from Telluride. Although this year, I guess with COVID, it's probably a slightly different feel. But win the People's Choice, the Audience Award there, out of hundreds of movies that they screen there. And it really does, you know, it's not just a phrase, a launching pad. It actually does seem to, you know, give a movie a profile that maybe it didn't have before a festival like that. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, you know, when we made this film, it's such a specific story to Northern Ireland, you know, which is a small part of a small island. And, you know, you kind of think, well, people in Ireland or people in the UK will resonate with this film, but you don't really know how it's going to sort of touch people or reach people beyond that. And unfortunately, I had just had a baby, so I didn't get to go to Telluride. I think my baby was like 4 weeks old at that point, but I was getting lots of texts from Jamie Dornan, who was there, and you know, telling me how great and special it was. And you know, I saw those class photos, and I was having a slight FOMO. But
how's your baby?
He's great. He slept for 7 hours last night, so he's a legend in my book. But yeah, and same with Toronto. Toronto's, I think, a couple of days later, so I also didn't go. But I've been to Toronto before, and it's such a, you know, I think it's such a great festival because it's sort of, I think it straddles. It's not as crazy as, say, Cannes or whatever, but it's, you know, it's a lot of real film lovers go to see a lot of films. So, I mean, that was really, I think, the moment our film kind of, you know, came out and people were talking a lot about it. And it's, I mean, I think it's invaluable for a small movie to have, you know, some wind behind its sails and to get some notice, and it's been great. And we've become a lot busier since. So
I was gonna say, you guys, this is
I've had to employ a nanny. So
your full-time job for the next few months, but I guess there are worse ways to go about life. But well, I can't thank you guys enough for the great performances and for taking time to do this. And so on behalf of AFI Fest and the Hollywood Reporter, thank you so much.
You.
And
Thank you.
appreciate
All
it.
these
Thank you,
wonderful
Scott.
actors. What a privilege. Thank you.